Okay, Chapter 10, Fare Thee Wells. Well, that was simple and direct, said Annie. Yeah, Jack said. Augusta looked at Jack and Annie. I saw them, she said with her eyes wide. I finally saw the she. I really saw them. She burst out laughing. Her laughter was so full of joy that Jack and Annie started laughing too. I saw them, Augusta kept repeating. I saw the she, and now I have important things to do. Yes, you do, said Annie. I must learn the old language, and I must start gathering stories at once. That's what Queen Annie told me, said Augusta. I can't wait to visit the old storytellers. There's Mary Sheridan and Biddy Early, too. I'll start with Mary. Let's go see her right now. Hurry, will you come with me? Hurry. Sure, said Annie, but just a second. She turned to Jack. What about Willie? Who's Willie? Said Augusta. Oh, he's just a friend of ours, said Jack, looking around. He said he'd wait for us, but where was he going to wait? Willie! Willie! Called Annie. I guess he's still somewhere on the other side of the river, said Jack. That's too bad, said Annie. Yeah, said Jack. Come, let us go see Mary now, said Augusta, grabbing Annie's hand and pulling her along. Jack looked around for Willie one last time. He was sad about not seeing the little leprechaun again, but he was a little relieved, too. He knew they couldn't keep their part of the deal, teaching Willie how to play the magic whistle. Come on, Jack, cried Augusta. Jack followed the two girls through the wet meadow, over the stone wall, down the dirty lane, and across the muddy field to Mary Sheridan's cottage. Mary, Mary, Augusta called. She dashed ahead of Jack and Annie, and she didn't even stop to knock on the door. She threw open the door to the cottage. Oh, she said, freezing in her tracks. Jack and Annie caught up with Augusta and looked inside the cottage. Mary was sitting in front of her fire. Next to her was a small man wearing a green jacket and a three-cornered red cap with a white feather. Willie, cried Annie. Annie and Jack hurried past Augusta into the cottage. You're here, said Jack. Of course, I said I'd wait for you, said the leprechaun. I see you found your dear friend and brought her home. Good work. Augusta stood in the doorway, gaping at Willie. Who are you? She asked. Name's Willie, just plain Willie, said the leprechaun. I usually leave before you visit Mary, but now that you've seen the she, I suppose there's no hiding from you anymore. There's Willie and Mary and Jack and Augusta. Are you real? Asked Augusta. Who knows, said the leprechaun. Maybe I'm real and you're not, depending on which one of us is asking the question. Everyone laughed. Good point, said Annie. Well, we'd better be getting home, said Jack. He wanted to leave before Willie asked Annie for his whistle lesson. Jack took Annie's hand and started backing toward the door. Thanks for helping us, Willie, he said. Yeah, and thanks, Mary, for everything, said Annie. Goodbye, Augusta. Goodbye, everyone. Wait just a minute, my friends, said Willie. Uh-oh, thought Jack. Have you forgotten our deal, said Willie. My fingers are itching to make beautiful music for Mary. Well, you see there's a problem with that, said Jack. A frown crossed Willie's face. A problem? How could there be a problem? Find your friend and teach Willie to play the whistle. Doesn't get any simpler than that. Right, said Jack. So what's the problem? Asked Willie. Well, the whistle. Jack didn't know how to finish. I'll answer that question, said Annie. Willie, I'm going to be simple and direct and honest with you. Yes, said the leprechaun. Merlin the magician gave us this whistle to help us on our missions, said Annie. The whistle is magic, and the magic only works once. Without the magic, I really don't know how to play it. So I can't teach you. There you have it. Ah, said Willie. He looked at the floor and shook his head. Then I'm afraid I'm going to have to turn the both of you into chipmunks. What? Said Jack. Willie burst out laughing. Joking, only joking. Merlin, you should have told me you were friends with Merlin in the first place. Do you know Merlin? Said Jack. Oh, yes. We spent a great deal of time together. Must be about 800 years ago now. How is he? He's happy, said Annie. Good. Willie turned back to Mary and Augusta. I first met the master magician on the Isle of Merlin in the Irish Sea. He... Wait, please, Willie, said Augusta. Mary, do you have pen and paper? No, my dear, I'm afraid I don't, said Mary. I can help, said Jack. He took his pencil and small notebook out of the pocket. He tore some clean pages out of the notebook, and then he gave the pencil and pages to Augusta. There, he said. Oh, thank you, Jack, said Augusta. She turned back to Willie. Continue, please. Well, said Willie, Merlin was only a few centuries old then, and I was a mere lad. As Willie told his story, Augusta began to write it down. Jack put his notebook back into his pocket and nodded to Annie. She nodded back, and the two of them just started out the door. Just as they were about to leave, Annie called out to the others, Bye! We have to go home now, said Jack. Trip lightly, said Willie. Thank you for everything, said Augusta. 1 and 20 fair thee-wells, said Mary. Same to you guys, said Jack. Then he and Annie slipped out of the cottage. The rain was pouring again and the wind was blowing hard. I think we inspired Augusta, said Annie. Yep, we accomplished our mission, said Jack. Now let's get out of here. He couldn't wait to go home and get warm and dry. Jack and Annie ran against the wind, and they climbed over the stone wall and then hurried down the lane, sliding in the muck. They ran across the soaked field. By the time they arrived at the rope ladder, their clothes were caked with mud. Jack and Annie climbed into the tree house. Annie found the Pennsylvania book in the corner. As rain blew through the windows, she pointed to a picture of Frog Creek woods. I wish we could go there, she said. The wind blew harder and the treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still.